Hi there, welcome back to my farm, my grow room. I am in the middle of seed starting and planting. So this week, my update is that I actually planted some of my anemones into my greenhouse. Now, this year, what I'm trying to do is do something a little bit different. I want to stay away from using a lot of natural gas to reduce costs. I set up a low tunnel using just a poly plastic. So what I did was I planted my anemones in that low tunnel and I put a little space heater that is electric. Now, I monitored the temperatures last night. The temperature, the actual heater, it didn't actually run consistently. I turned it to about a medium heat because anemones don't need to be really warm. I turned it to a medium heat. And what happened is it would run for about 4 minutes and then it would kick off for about 4 minutes. And it was very consistent throughout the night, and it was holding around 12 degrees Celsius during the coldest part of the night. And in the evening, in the afternoon, it really held around 19 degrees Celsius. So I was really happy with that because that keeps the anemones growing. It has them rooting, it has them wanting to put growth. And even if they do start to peek through the soil and start to put on blooms or buds, it's the prime conditions for them. What I'm concerned about, though, is that next week we're supposed to have minus 20 degrees Celsius nights again. So I'm a little concerned, but I'm pretty sure I could probably hold that low tunnel around 4 degrees Celsius with that little heater. I could also put some extra thermals over top to kind of tuck it in, to make more layers. I was actually thinking about putting clamps on my hoops and then putting another layer of sheeting over top so that it creates a pocket of air between the bottom sheet and the upper sheet, just like my greenhouse has. That creates like a nice little barrier of about 4 degrees Celsius. So that would give me 8 degrees Celsius of protection just for having those two, because my greenhouse is a double walled greenhouse with two walls of plastic. So that gives about 4 degrees Celsius buffer. That gives me another 4 degrees Celsius buffer if I do that on the low tunnel. And then the heat can just kick on and off as it needs to, and it should hold it longer. So it doesn't have to run consistently. So I was really happy with the results last night. I am planting the rest of my anemones out there, but the method I'm doing is the ground is still frozen. I mean, I have not had the heat on. It hasn't been, our days are not that long yet. The sun is just peeking over the tree line, so the sun is actually just starting to hit the greenhouse. The soil is very, very frozen underneath. And so what I did is, instead of like under the first little bit of soil, I roughed that up. And then what I did is I brought in some Annalita products. The first product I put down is the Annalita Gold Plus product. Now, the reason I did that is because it has all of the amendments in it that I need to amend my bed. I'm not just going to be growing anemones in this bed. After the anemones are done, I'm going to have food production in there. I'm also going to have zinnias in there later in the season. So I want to make sure that I have a lot of amendments in place, so I'm not worrying about it later. I'm looking for long-term solutions and long-term amendments in my soil. So I added the Gold Plus. I also added the Prime Plus. And the Prime Plus, what I really wanted that in there for is because it has biochar. Now, biochar is a really great source of having microorganisms and a lot of good bacteria and fungi to reside for long durations of time, for a long term. So I wanted to amend my bed with that. I wanted to be able to give my anemones a good boost so I could dig them and store them for next season. So I really heavily amended that. Now, I used 2 bags of each product in my row of anemones, and I, instead of digging down into plant my anemones, which, by the way, my anemones were way bigger than I would like to have planted them. I should have had them out like over a week ago. They're way too big for what I prefer to plant them. But I'm doing what I can with the time I have in the weather I got to deal with. And so I ended up just planting them this way. So I just set them on top of the soil. And then what I did is I brought in more Annalita products and I buried them basically with a different product called Prime. Um, Prime Organic Blend. So it's just an organic blend soil. It's very loose, it's sifted, it's a really nice soil, and it helps with aeration. And I think that it's going to really help a lot with creating a lot of lightness in the soil and helping with the hydration. I then covered everything with leaves that I had raked up last fall and mulched all my beds with. I had, in the beginning of the process, I raked them away and then I put them back on top to create another layer of protection. So now I have them covered in, I have that plastic over top of them. I have the heater running in there with one end open so that it can get some fresh air flowing through. It's been working super well. I'm really happy with it. So some other updates. My anemone issue that I had that I talked about in a previous video, we've kind of narrowed it down. I've been talking with Van Noort because some of the corms that I had some problems with came from Van Noort. And it seems like there is a bunch of multiple problems. So one of the problems of that we discovered is that the one bag that I had maybe had some problems with it before I even received it, either with harvesting or there was something that gone onto it, but it was very localized to that specific bag having a specific problem. Then some of the other ones seem to have a secondary infection. So there was something not right with them. And then it was a fungal or bacterial, most likely fungal issue from how I was dealing with them or handling them. That definitely was something that, because they were already weak, they were already not prime. There was some handling issues where they had some conflicts and then started to get either be taken over by fungal infections or bacterial infections that happen later. But some of them, it seemed like there was a whole bunch of different things that happened at once. Now you got to remember, in total I have over, I think, 2,500 anemones growing. So out of 2,500 anemones, really to have the amount of problems that I did have is pretty good, considering I'm used to seeing so many anemones not viable. So this was alarming to me, and I think that a lot of it has to do with how a person is hydrating them, how long you're soaking them, what type of medium you're putting them into. I did use sterilized trays and I did use new trays, but I also handled stuff that, I was planting and busy doing stuff and I washed trays, and maybe I didn't wash my hands well enough when I was dealing with these anemone corms when they were very vulnerable, at that stage where they were just hydrated and they were going into the soil where they hadn't really woken up. There's different things that I done, as well as problems with the corms themselves in maybe not being as healthy as they could have been. So I do have some other companies that I did do order some stuff from, and I have seen a few problems here and there, nothing like what I had experienced, but I don't necessarily think that it's the supplier. I think that the supplier is only, they only can do as much as they can do with what they have knowledge about, but they have been troubleshooting it with me. We've been discussing things back and forth. And I really think that there's a lot of multiple amounts of things going on. When you have this many corms and this many starts, um, there's bound to be multiple problems that you come across. And that's new for me because I have never grown this volume of anemones before. Half of my greenhouse is going to be anemones. And I mean, it's a 20 by 60 structure. That's a lot of anemones. So, and then I have anemones going outside as well. So, there's a lot of anemones. The ranunculus, so far, I haven't had any issues with the ranunculus, just the anemones. But all the bottom line is that we've been communicating about it, and they've been great about it. And I'm not going to not order again because I had some problems. I know there's been many people had brought it up about having like messaged me and having problems with their anemones. One of the things I would recommend is that if you're having some problems with your anemones, contact them and say, this is what's happening. They're not going to dismiss you. If they don't know what's going on, they can't resolve the problem for you. And when people get upset or angry because they're having some conflicts, you can't just get mad at people and expect results. Or it's very frustrating. I mean, I was very frustrated as well because it was most of my crop in the beginning. I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna lose all my crop. What's going on? There's all of this stuff happening. And when I had to throw away a whole tray, it was very disheartening. But that was one bag, that was one batch. And as I'm working with them, troubleshooting what's going on, I feel more confident. I'm seeing more successes. I'm trying different things they're suggesting, and it resolves itself. So, I may not get 100% crop, and I'm going to have some failures, but you know what? I'm learning. I've learned a lot this year, and I'm going to apply it for next year. And I hope what I've learned is helpful to some of you. I think anemones are just one of those things that there's so many things that can happen. I mean, I don't know very many people that grow anemones in our climate either. It could be something that they're exposed to. It could be they could be vulnerable to a type of a yeast or a type of a fungus that is naturally occurring here. You just never know. So there's so many things. I definitely will be considering like a treatment, like kind of like when I treat my seeds. I do a treatment on them. I might actually start considering doing that with my anemones just to kind of see if that helps. I do have some organic methods that I can try. And then working with Annalita, they have some new products coming out this year as well that I would like to try to see if this makes an improvement so that I don't lose any to fungal or bacterial. I didn't see any pathogens, so I don't think it was a pathogen issue technically. But it could have been. It could have been something. I mean, I'm just learning with the microscope. So anyway. So today is a very busy day. I need to do some more planting and get a bunch of my seeds started, but I wanted to come on and give you an update, and I have some updates in here to show you as well. There's a cucumber. Look at this guy. It just grew like crazy. Crazy. Cucumbers everywhere. much for hanging out with me and planting my anemones in my greenhouse. I hope you're having a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
What are you doing?
I got my first sunburn.
Thanks, ladies.